Hello everyone. In this session we are going to have a discussion on artificial intelligence. We just finished the chapter of robotics, and in robotics we understood how robotics works and what are the different parts of robots, components of robots, advantages, disadvantages, concerns about robots, etc. Correct? Now we are going to have a discussion on artificial intelligence, and we'll try to understand the aspects of artificial intelligence. Now, this is one area of research where you will see that a lot of new developments keep on happening. If you look at artificial intelligence, or rather news related to artificial intelligence 10 years back, you would hardly find anything, and you would see that this is something that is seen as science of the future. Robotics was there were other areas of research, but when you look at artificial intelligence, it was not really there, and it was something that was seen as something that will follow in future and something that will develop a lot in future. And then if you look at the news articles related to artificial intelligence, maybe in last 2-3 years, last 4-5 years, you'll see that a lot new things have started to happen, and in the field of artificial intelligence, and you can say that in a manner the potential of artificial intelligence is now being recognized. So let's try to understand what do we mean by artificial intelligence, some of the basic components of artificial intelligence. For example, what is the meaning of neural networks, what is the meaning of machine learning, what is the meaning of deep learning, then the different kinds of artificial intelligence, and then we'll have a look at the various application areas with regards to artificial intelligence. Also, we'll have a look at what is India doing with artificial intelligence, and towards the end we'll have a look at some of the challenges that India is facing today with regards to artificial intelligence. Alright, so let's start with the chapter. Now when you look at this word, artificial intelligence, what do we mean? Intelligence is something that we often associate with the human brain, correct? So when we develop something, it could be a program, it could be a machine that can develop thinking ability, that can understand patterns, that can understand how the things have to work according to a given situation. Then in that case, if it is able to take certain decisions according to how they have been programmed, then in that case we can say that they have developed artificial intelligence. Now artificial intelligence can be of different kinds, and we'll have a look at what are these different kinds. But here you just have to understand that we are talking about an intelligence that has been artificially developed, that we have developed. We have trained a machine, we have trained an algorithm how to work and how to understand the process and how exactly does it need to work according to a given environment, without we having to give the instruction every time. So for example, when we talk about a computer program or a software, this is where you give instructions, correct? You give instructions and the system would work according to that instruction, and every time you have to give an instruction so that that instruction can be implemented by that machine. But in case of artificial intelligence, you don't need to give instructions every time. The machine would understand what it needs to do because it has been fed with the process. It understands what it needs to do and how it needs to react under different circumstances. So this is how artificial intelligence can be defined. So if we want to define it, first way to define it could be that it refers to the ability of machines to perform cognitive tasks such as thinking, perceiving, learning, problem solving and decision making. So everything, as I said, everything that is associated with the human brain. Then another way in which it can be seen is constellation of technologies that enable machines to act with higher level of intelligence and emulate the human capabilities of sense, comprehend and act. Then the term may also be applied to any machine that exhibits traits associated with human mind such as learning and problem solving. So if you see, all these three different definitions are saying one or the same thing, correct? They are just talking about if there is a machine, if there is something that can emulate the human brain, that can work how the human brain works, which can understand things, which can think, which can make decisions, has cognitive activities, has cognitive abilities, then in that case we'll say that this is artificial intelligence. So what are the examples of artificial intelligence? So whenever you have a machine that can sense, that can comprehend or that can act, and there are various examples that we can take. For example, computer vision, audio processing, image processing, natural language processing, knowledge representation. You can even something as simple as translating something, translation. If you know Google Translate, so Google Translate, how does it work? It has a certain set of words and it has a certain set of phrases, and it converts it into the language that you want. Now, what happens is, over a period of time, Google Translate also learns that this is not the right translation, this is the right way to translate something, this is the word meaning if it is being used in a certain context. So all these things it will learn over a period of time. So I don't know whether you have used Google Translate, and if you have used it 2 years back or 3 years back compared to if you use it today, there is a lot of difference that has come. There used to be a lot of errors, there used to be a lot of mistranslations, and it was completely off. But if you look at the translations today, if you feed the same sentences that you used to feed 2 years, 3 years back, you will see that now the translations are much better as compared to what it used to be. So what it means is that over a period of time, this Google Translate software has learned certain things, has started to understand how translation works, has started to understand what is the correct way to translate something, right? So in a manner we can say that this is also artificial intelligence, because it is trying to process the language. It is a kind of language processing that is happening, and it is trying to comprehend the language and then act. So machine learning, expert systems, etc. can be examples of this. So everything, wherever the things are learning by itself, understanding how to behave, perceiving the environment, and accordingly acting as per the environment. In all these cases, you can say that it is working according to artificial intelligence rules, right? So as you can see, there are various examples that we can take. All these are just examples, and there is no dearth of examples that we have today. If let's say a question in the prelims examination comes, consider the following statements. There are 5 activities that have been given, and if you are asked which of the following can be performed using artificial intelligence, answer would be all of the above, because there is nothing that is beyond the capacity of artificial intelligence. There is something that is already been discussed, there are some things which are in development, and there are some things that will be developed in future. So if a question says can be, then in can be there are n number of possibilities, and perhaps all the options that have been given there are correct. So this is what will happen if such a question comes, because artificial intelligence is something that has wide applications, and applications today, some of them have been recognized. There are others where the scientific community is working upon and trying to develop all these activities, and perhaps in future we'll see artificial intelligence taking over probably everything where there is a possibility of making things better with the help of artificial intelligence, right? Now when we talk about artificial intelligence, there are certain things that become very very important for you to understand. For example, there is one term that you will often come across, and this is machine learning. Now when we talk about machine learning, as you can understand from here itself, this is a system where the machine learns, correct? The machine understands how to process information, the machine understands how to react according to the given information. So machine is basically learning. So this is a term that was coined way back in 1959 by Arthur Samuel, where he meant the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed, right? So this is what I said, that when you talk about a software, a computer software, you have to give instructions to it for it to work properly. But in case of artificial intelligence, which is using machine learning or other such things, then in that case you don't have to provide the information or don't have to provide the instruction every time. It will start to learn, it will start to behave according to what information it has received. So for example, if you are talking about a computer that is playing chess, so maybe the computer is losing to you today, but as and when it keeps on learning new things, it keeps on playing against a lot of players, it understands the moves. And maybe 10 games later it's not a good player, 100 games later it's not a very good player, but 1000 games later it might be a much better player, because it has started to learn the behavior of the opponent. And that's why with the help of artificial intelligence, you can create a chess player which would be much better version of itself after it learns a few steps, after it has played against a lot of players. So what happens is that every game it keeps on learning, every game it starts to understand that how exactly the opponent is working, and it starts to behave accordingly. So this is something that can be called as machine learning, because the machine, the process, the software is learning how to behave according to the given environment. So the machine learning involves the use of algorithms to parse data and learn from it, and making a determination or prediction as a result. So that's why this chess player, the artificial intelligence chess player, will be able to understand that if this is your first move and this is your second move, what your 10th move could be, what your 20th move could be, and accordingly it will start to act so that it hinders you from using those moves. So this is how the machine is learning. This is a very trivial example, but this is how machine is learning. Whenever you are giving it data and trying to make it understand the data. So the machine gets trained using large amount of data and algorithm, and in turn gains the capability to perform specific task, right? So it could be in the industries, it could be in any sector, it could be in energy sector, it could be in agriculture, it could be in any sector, but the machine would learn according to the data that is being fed, the patterns that it is coming across, and ultimately it will be a better version of itself, much more helpful for you as it might have been while you started working with it. So this is how machine learning works. Now there is another concept related to machine learning, which is deep learning. Now deep learning, we can simply say that it is a better variant of machine learning. So it is a type of machine learning that can process a wider range of data resources, requires less data pre-processing by humans, and can often produce more accurate results than traditional machine learning approaches. That's why deep learning is basically a better variant of machine learning, where larger amount of data can be processed, and this data can be processed in a shorter duration of time. So that's why deep learning will become a better variant of machine learning. So for example, you can think of a facial recognition software. And nowadays, if you have a high-end smartphone, or rather even a normal smartphone, you would see that it is able to understand the data, it is able to recognize the images. So for example, if you have fed 10 of your images or 15 of your images, then the next 100 images, if you have, even if you have a group photo where there are 20-30 odd people, it would be able to recognize your face, because it has started to learn, because you have fed information to it, and after a period of time it starts to process all this data, understands all this data, understands all these layers that are there in the photograph, and because of that ultimately it will be able to recognize you after a point in time. So that's why facial recognition software will be able to recognize from a large data that has been provided to it. Now this is again a very trivial example. Your phone camera using your images to understand how to recognize your face, and then from a wide variety of photographs it can recognize you. Now take the same example and think of, let's say, if the police has to catch somebody, that they have an image and they have to recognize this image from thousands of images and video footages that they have from all across the city, maybe from traffic cams, maybe from CCTV footages, and trying to understand and find out this criminal. This is where deep learning will actually be helpful, because now there are thousands or lakhs of images to find from, and it has to process lakhs of images and find a pattern so that this particular face can be found out from lakhs of images. And this could be done in a very quick amount of time, very small amount of time, because deep learning works with higher volume of data at a shorter duration of time. So that's why this is something that will be helpful in that manner. So this is just again one of the examples, facial recognition. Same, let's say if we are talking about image processing in satellite images, and we are trying to find out a pattern in the weather. Again, deep learning can be very helpful. Similarly, you can think of any other sector. You can think of agricultural sector. You can think of energy sector. If we are trying to understand the energy consumption pattern of a given city, and we need to work accordingly, deep learning can be helpful there. So that's why all these are the things that can be helpful in making things better. There are wide variety of application areas, and we'll have a look at all these applications also as we move forward. Now, another key concept in artificial intelligence is neural networks. And how neural networks work is also very essential to understand the whole working of artificial intelligence and the various application areas that we have with regards to artificial intelligence. So, as you can see here, that in deep learning, interconnected layers of software-based calculators known as neurons form neural network. So, what do we mean by this neural network? Let's try to understand this. So, when we talk about neural network, neural, as you can understand from the word, neural is something that is being derived from a word neurons, correct? Or in a manner you can say the nerve cells that we have. So if you talk about the nervous system of the human body, there is a network of nerve cells or neurons all across our body. And this is something that passes on the information from one part to the other. And most importantly, all the information is sent to the brain. So that brain understands each and every part of this information and comprehends the information according to the requirement. And then after this, instructions will be sent to different parts of our body, and then we would perform different kinds of functions. So for example, currently my body is telling my brain that I have to speak in a certain manner. So that's why I am able to speak to you. Now this is happening because of certain kinds of nerve cells that are present in our body. Now in artificial intelligence, because we are trying to replicate the human brain, there is something which is called as neural network that also works very similar to how a network of neurons work in our body. And that's why this entire system has been named as neural network. So when we talk about neural network, this is nothing but a network of neurons, network of different processes, everything running together that would understand something, that would understand the pattern, the behavior, the environment, and give output accordingly. So for example, if you look at this particular picture, what happens in a neural network is that there will be different kinds of inputs that will be given, correct? And all these inputs will go through multiple hidden layers that are present. Now here we have depicted only 3 layers, but this can be a huge number of layers that can be present between the input and the output. And once the information passes through these different layers, the machine tries to understand the pattern, the behavior, the instructions that have been given, so that it understands how it needs to behave accordingly, how it needs to give an output accordingly. So this is how the things would work, that there will be multiple hidden layers, and through this layer ultimately we arrive at an output. So there will be an input layer and there will be an output layer. Input layer will feed the information and output layer will understand this information through various hidden layers that we have. We don't need to go into the details of how exactly all these layers work, how different weights are provided to different kinds of input, and according to these weights how the calculations are done for different layers. All these things are not required for the examination, but just understand that in neural network there is a huge network of information that is being processed, and ultimately all these layers will process the information and give an output, and similarly start to understand the entire pattern, the behavior, the environment, and give output accordingly in future as well. Now, what is the difference between deep learning and neural network? That we have discussed 3 terms: machine learning, deep learning, and neural network. We are saying that deep learning will work according to neural network, will work with the help of neural network, correct? So that's why we need to understand what is the basic difference between a neural network and deep learning. Machine learning and deep learning, we understood that machine learning is where machine starts to learn a behavior, the pattern, and deep learning is a better variant of machine learning where larger amount of data is being processed in a smaller amount of time. So then we call it as deep learning instead of calling it as machine learning. Now deep learning will need neural networks, and if there are 3 or more of such hidden networks, then in that case we'll say that this neural network is deep neural network. So if the number of layers are 3 or more than 3, it can be n number of layers, then in that case neural network basically is called as deep neural network. So that's why when we talk about neural networks, a bunch of neural networks together will basically perform the task that is associated with deep learning. So that's why this neural network can be used to extract patterns and detect trends, that are too complex to be noticed either by human or other computer techniques. So that's why we are saying that this is how the input and the output works, because it can extract the patterns by looking at all the information, studying all the information, and processing huge amount of information parallelly. It is not going to process one information at a time. It is going to process all these information parallelly and give out a pattern so that it can work accordingly in the future as well. So these three components become very, very important for us to understand what is artificial intelligence: machine learning, deep learning, and neural network. Now, there are different ways in which we define artificial intelligence. There are classifications that we do. Let's try to understand what we mean here. So first way to classify artificial intelligence is between weak artificial intelligence and strong artificial intelligence. What's the meaning? In case of weak artificial intelligence, it is more like simulated thinking, that you have programmed this artificial intelligence to think in a certain manner. It's not that it has developed its cognitive abilities on its own. It has been fed information, it has been fed with the pattern, and it works according to these patterns and informations that we have provided. And that's why it is called as weak artificial intelligence, because it is still very, very human dependent. It's not that it can work without human assistance. It can work on its own. It can start thinking on its own. It can understand the emotions. All these things do not happen. So that's why weak artificial intelligence is where still a lot of human involvement is required. So it describes simulated thinking, that is a system which appears to behave intelligently but doesn't have any kind of consciousness about what it is doing. Alright, so that's why we are saying that it knows the pattern, understands the patterns, and it works according to those patterns and the information, the software, etc. Everything that is working together. It does not have its own consciousness. So then in that case, we'll say that this is weak artificial intelligence. Most of the things, or rather I would say everything that we are working today on, is basically based on weak artificial intelligence. We still have not developed strong artificial intelligence. What is the meaning of strong artificial intelligence? As you can understand, because we are differentiating, that this is where the machines will have a consciousness. Machines would know what is right and what is wrong. They have their own cognitive abilities. They understand how to behave in a certain manner without assistance from the humans. So they can work parallel to the humans. They can work parallel to how we behave today. Right? So this is where it will come to strong artificial intelligence. So it describes actual thinking. That is behaving intelligently, thinking as human does, with a conscious, subjective mind. So that's why if you take the examples of weak AI, if you have seen the chatbots of different websites, that they have a certain set of answers according to the keywords that they see in the questions, and accordingly they will try to talk to you, but they do not have a consciousness. They do not know how to exactly react, but they know the pattern and they can react according to that pattern. There have been some instances which we have seen. I mean, very famously, there was one incident that happened with one of the airlines, that somebody reported on their Twitter account that the person traveled from Kolkata to Bengaluru, but his stuff was sent to the Delhi flight, and he complained about this on Twitter, that in a very sarcastic tone, that thank you for sending me to Bangalore and my stuff to Delhi. What happened next was that there was a chatbot that replied, thank you for your kind words, we look forward to serving you again. So because it was a chatbot, it did not understand the human emotion, it did not understand that this was sarcasm, and it acted according to the words that it saw, that somebody is presenting gratitude, so that's why they need to act accordingly, and that's why these were the next words of the airline. So it was not a human typing it, but rather a chatbot typing it. So this is weak AI. But if it was the case of a strong AI, then in that case there are possibilities that it knows how to react. So for example, when two humans talk, it's not a set pattern. I don't know what you are going to say next if I'm talking to you. Correct? There can be n number of ways in which you can react to a certain given situation. So when that happens, this, if let's say the machines also have this ability, then in that case we'll say that this is strong AI. Then another way to classify artificial intelligence is between narrow AI and general AI. So narrow AI is when you have given it a single task. It has been fed information, the patterns, the software according to the instructions it starts to work. So for example, a voice recognition software. The voice recognition software only knows how to recognize the voice. It does not know how to process images. It does not know how to process videos. It does not know how to play chess, for example. It just knows how to recognize voice. So this is an example of narrow AI. Similarly, a chess playing artificial intelligence, an example that I had quoted. This is also narrow AI because it just knows how to play chess. It does not know how to play Ludo. It does not know how to play PUBG. So it just knows how to play chess. So that's why this is also narrow AI. At the same time, general AI is when artificial intelligence can perform a wide variety of tasks. In this case, we'll say that this is general AI. So let's say if one artificial intelligence machinery is able to play chess, is able to play Ludo, is able to do XYZ things, it can recognize voice, it can recognize facial patterns, etc. Then in that case, it will be a case of general AI, right? So describes an AI which can be used to complete a wide range of tasks in a wide range of environments. As such, it's much closer to human intelligence. So that's why, in a manner, you can say that if we combine general AI and strong AI, then in that case we get something which can be actually called as super intelligence. Let's try to understand what is the meaning of super intelligence. So super intelligence is often used to refer to general and strong AI at the point at which it surpasses human intelligence, if it ever does. So this is something that is a real threat, that if it ever happens that strong AI is developed and general AI is developed and both are able to work simultaneously, then in that case the combination of strong and general AI would become super intelligence. This is where the machine does not need you anymore. The machine does not need instructions from you. It does not need to understand from you how to recognize the patterns, how to behave in a certain situation. Then in that case, this is where all the science fiction of today, you can say rather, can become a reality of tomorrow, if at all it happens. But as the scientists say today, that this is something that is far off in future. We are nowhere near construction of a super intelligence, construction of even a strong AI or general AI. Maybe 50 years from now, maybe 70, 80 years from now, we don't know how the things will work. But as of now, it is not a real threat. But again, this is where we have to take a step of caution. We need to understand that this is something that can happen in future, and that's why we have to take steps accordingly, understanding each and every part of our behavior and how do we want to build our machines, how do we want our machines to react to certain things, right? So this is what super intelligence is, a combination of strong AI and general AI at the same time.